I and I King Dandy crazy. Wow. You're watching MD90. Subscribe to YouTube channel. Nishiu. They gave you.
Well, what's coming out of South Africa keeps on getting heated more. As you may be aware, the Lungu family appealed the High Court judgment in South Africa. Now they've moved to the Supreme Court. Now, a twist has come through since that was filed in. It seems like there's a demand to have a postmortem conducted on Edgar Lungu's body, and that's what's been a conversation in the past couple of hours. And the demand is said to come from the South African government. Obviously, Winter Kavimba weighed in. He says anyone that is supporting and defending the Edgar Chagwa family is a criminal. That's Winter Kavimba's opinion. Simply says what they're doing at this point is not supposed to be supported by anyone. And then obviously, a plot to move Edgar Chagwa body exposed. So angers distresses family after the South African Police Service attempted to access the body of former President Lungu under the pretext of to conduct an autopsy DNA to claim, on claims of investigating the allegations that the former head of state may have died from poisoning allegations. The family fear are meant to grab the body from them. So it seems like it's the South African police that wanted to access his body, according to the information that's been circulating the past couple of hours. And on the pretext to have a postmortem or an autopsy, pretty much the same thing done on Edgar Chagwa body, and those are the documentations. And then obviously, say South African Police Service, and there's a sergeant name there, and then you can say criminal case, alleged poisoning of the late former President Edgar Lungu. And then obviously that's a demand that they had issued towards the morgue where his body is being kept. And then obviously the opposition, the Lungu family, and a number of people have weighed in reaction to that. Manuel Mwamba was quick to respond to say seeking access to the body and conducting postmortem, and then he attaches the documents that were alleged to have been presented to the morgue where his body is being kept, where that demand was issued, and those are the documents you see there. So he says, this is Emmanuel Mwamba weighing in, says, Attorney General Omuliro Kabesha must stop these games. It has emerged that they have concreted pressure to retrieve access the body of the late president, Edgar Chagwa, following the complaint from the South African pressure group Progressive Forces of South Africa, an entity that State House and Mulilo Kabesha have been using primarily to the civil activist organization conducting protests and press conferences demanding the repatriation of the remains of remains to Zambia, and now demanding a postmortem and criminal investigation into the death of former Zambian President Edgar Lungu. They're relying on interviews that was earlier made and attributed to the Patriotic Front Secretary General Raphael Nakachinda. The court in South Africa has restricted access to the body, but Kabesha and his surrogates are determined to access the body in whichever way they can. This is why suspicions are raised about the intentions. This evil charade must come to an end, and dignity, even in the late hours, must be given to the late president. So that's a reaction from Emmanuel Mwamba, who's pretty much a Patriotic Front media person there, simply saying there is no grounds. Obviously, South African police demand Lungu's body to conduct postmortem following a poisoning claim. claims. So, and then they're attributing it to, if you remember, there was a time that Raphael Nakachinda was doing a media run in South Africa on South African media platforms, and he had alleged to say they had not ruled out the possibility of Edgar Chagalungu being poisoned. And according to what the South African police presented in demanding for his body, they're using the same interviews to say, I mean, if you, within the Patriotic Front you also suspected it, we might as well conduct a post-mortem. But then the Lungu family is arguing to say, to start with, if you have not been granted access by the courts, then why do you want to do it now? And obviously, Katele Kalumba also weighed in, and then the UPND was quick to respond to him. So former Minister Katele Kalumba claims delaying Edgar Chagalungu's burial is a political gimmick by President Hichilema. This is the man who was said to be dying and needed a pardon. So they're referring to, if you remember, Katele Kalumba was in prison, and I think he was pardoned by Hakainde Hichilema, unless if he served his term. But anyway, so that's what they're referring to. Today, he has forgotten that Edgar Chagalungu's family is busy dragging the court matter, which were concluded by trial court. How does Hakainde Hichilema come in when it is not him who has appealed the court decision? Why doesn't he ask the former first family to go by the trial court's decision, pretty much saying if the verdict from the High Court was that the body of the late president should be brought back to Zambia, why doesn't Katele Kalumba advise the family to just let that play out in that sense? And then perhaps, and I mean, why doesn't that decision? Perhaps the best for him is to ask a former first family to move on and uphold the court decision. Now the South African government has been prompted to begin conducting DNA tests on Edgar Chagalungu. We urge Dr. Kalumba to reflect and stop misleading citizens. That's the UPND media team responding to Katele Kalumba, simply saying what is being played out here are gimmicks coming from Hakainde Hichilema in particular and the UPND government, to which they have responded to there. And obviously, Maximo, that's the UPND director of, I think, media, if I'm not mistaken, media director, and he had a response to say, this perhaps may lead us to why some people do not want the government of the Republic of Zambia to have access to the body. We need to know what happened. So he's simply saying, I mean, if the South African government has opted to have Edgar Chagalungu's remains, an autopsy done on him, might as well get this over and done with, and having allegations flying in from both sides. So let's get it over and done with. That's Max Muwe, media director for the UPND there. So he says we need to know what happened, and obviously he attaches the details of what has been demanded as the South African Police Service is investigating the alleged poisoning of former President Edgar Chagalungu, who died on June 5th, 2025. And Mr. Lungu remained unburied amid protracted legal battle between the Zambian government and the Lungu family regarding his burial site. Obviously, pretty much the same headline there. What is Antonio and a number of people saying the UPND holds the upper hand on the 2026 general elections, and then he has, as they hold up those voters' cards, and you can see former Unzasu president there, Gabriel. I don't know the man on the far right there, so he put up an article simply saying, a political analysis presented by Democratic Progressive Party DPP President Antonio Mwanza suggested that the ruling party currently enters the 2026 general elections with a strategic advantage, although economic pressure and opposition dynamics could still significantly influence the outcome. So he did a SWOT analysis, the strengths, weaknesses, and threats of the elections that are coming up. And then Shishua says, if this president left office or died today, I won't miss him. And then that headline has brought up a number of political debates online, simply saying that statement doesn't sit well. Others obviously feel different way. And then that's in the Times of Zambia, and then that's in the Mass newspaper. Don't rape the constitution. Shinga warns Hakainde Hichilema against the last-minute electoral law changes that undermines Zambia's supreme law. So those suggested changes to the constitution or pretty much to the electoral code of conduct are not welcomed by the opposition, simply saying these things were supposed to be done 4 years ago, not when we're in an election year. We're almost here. So let's just have the vote on the same playing field that we've always had it, not last minute changes. And that's the news, ladies and gentlemen. Have a beautiful day.